Prison show is what I know. They bring in all these boys and girls all around the whole wide world. Prison show is what I know, but here we go. Whoa, prison show is what I know. They took me from my home, I can't get back.
Imprisoned Show is a show set out to educate the public about human trafficking. It features expert opinions, people, organizations, events on issues surrounding human trafficking around the world. Hello viewers at home, my name is Bukola Oriola and this is a Imprisoned Show. Today we came to the Coon High School. There is an event being held by the Anoka County Sheriff at the Anoka County schools focusing on sex trafficking. It's called the Sex Trafficking Forum. And there are lots of people from the community who came for this event. There are several people, the commanders from the Anoka County Sheriff's Office, students, youths, everybody is here. Plus, there are lots of resource tables here today for people to get information about this issue. And you are going to be hearing different people talking. So stay around and hear their views on human trafficking, specifically sex trafficking. They also talk about the safe harbor law that was passed recently in Minnesota and how we can help victims and treat them as victims instead of prostitutes, and how to provide services to this kind of people. So stay tuned and listen to all these great speakers, hear their views. The county attorney is here today, Attorney Tony Palumbo, and the county sheriff, Sheriff James Twalt, and many other great speakers talking about this issue on human trafficking.
Even after a career in law enforcement, honestly, I had no idea the extent of modern-day slavery going on right out in the open, right flagrantly occurring right in our communities, with no one really watching and not enough resources to truly put a dent in it. Starting out, we should really get into the 101. What is sex trafficking? And it's the sale of adults and children into commercial sexual servitude. It's forced or bonded labor. Ultimately, we're talking tonight about modern-day slavery. It's the world's fastest-growing criminal industry. It is second only to narcotics in the entire world, and it's rapidly closing that gap and expected to pass it because humans are a reusable commodity.
Little girls don't daydream that one day when I grow up, I want to be a victim of this. And if they are dreaming and daydreaming that, something's going on. There's something wrong with that. At Breaking Free, we call it what it is. It's an extension of slavery. Modern day slavery is what it is. Even if a girl's okay with being bought, you cannot sell a human being. It's against the law. So to see the websites that we see posting and having these little spots for you to sell slaves, how dare they? Isn't that a violation?
To what degree is it occurring? This is where I really started having a hard time with it. We like to think this is just a third world country issue. This isn't happening here. But instead, we know it's happening all over the world. There's millions of people being victimized every day. Nationally, the estimates are 300,000 people being victimized. Statewide, now this is where it starts to get scary for us as Minnesotans. We don't want to hear this, but it's the reality. In Minnesota, 8,000 to 12,000 people being victimized daily. Locally, we don't really know what the exact numbers are because, quite honestly, we haven't had the resources to be able to identify how bad the problem is.
I really want to say this is a community's issue. This is not a one person's issue. This is not a urban issue. This is all of our issue. Even if your child has not been involved in this, this does affect you. Because out here, there are predators preying on individuals and they can care less where they come from, what color they are, whose child they are, and how they were brought up. They pay to do to them what they want to and do not look at them as human beings.
Can you believe that they took me from home?
Now, within that first 48 hours that they spoke about, a youth is approached not only by a perpetrator as far as a seller, but they're also approached by a buyer. So one of the two will approach them within 48 hours. Last year alone, we worked with 510 victims. 100% of them were below poverty level. 80 to 90% were in need of safe, affordable housing. 69% were women and girls of color. 66% were minors dependents at the time of intake. 70% of them were from the Twin Cities of the urban area. 30% were from rural Minnesota. So this doesn't discriminate, as we said. We have international and domestic victims coming through our doors. Now that's just the ones that we were able to do an intake on.
So some signs that the victims might display if they're being lured into this trafficking or if they are involved in trafficking. And keep in mind, early on, oftentimes, and there might be some better statistics from some of our other experts that come up here, but there's been situations, they're still living at home. This is happening on evenings, on weekends, but things to look for are the evidence of that being controlled. New older boyfriend or girlfriend, habitual runaways, again, evidence of new clothes or expensive gifts, those bruises or other signs of battering, other signs of somebody controlling them, and the fear or depression and the fact that they're going to be trying to hide some of these other things.
And right away, I just need people to understand. The pimps, the traffickers, because that's the nicer name for it, they recruit kids in the areas where they're at. So, libraries. A big pimp's not going to walk in with a feather cap and a Cadillac, big jewels all over him and a long gold necklace, and he's not always black, which everyone thinks that's a stereotype. I'm going to send a kid that looks just like you into the library to study next to you if I'm a pimp, because I know you're not going to talk to the big bad wolf. I'm also going to send a female if I'm trying to recruit a female, because you're likely to talk to a young lady of your stature and that looks like you before you talk to me. So the methods that they're using nowadays is really, really cunning. They have to stay ahead of the law enforcement. So therefore, pimps will even have girls that are working regular jobs. They're in foster care. They're actually in the system working because they need to find out information. And pimps will have one or two of their girls having legit jobs in areas, seeing what's going on to stay a step ahead.
As I like to think when I send my kids off to a high school football game or to a school event, it's a safe place. The reality is, they're going where the kids are. And that's where they're going to be looking for any kid who looks maybe a little despondent or vulnerable or responds to a compliment. In this day and age, we also know a huge part of it is social media. They're looking for the kids on the internet. Why? Because that's where our kids are. I can't emphasize enough, if you have another takeaway, as a parent, as a person who has any kids in your life that you care about, know what they're doing online.
Just like Stockholm Syndrome, there's a relationship built with the abuser. And she does believe everything he tells her. The invisible chains are shame, addiction, threats of violence. Trauma bond is built, like I said, abuse, rape, threats to the family, that's very real. My pimp actually told me that if I told anybody at 15 that he would go to my mother's house, cut her head off, and give it to me on a platter. I had seen him beat so many women that I really believed he would do that. So I stayed quiet.
We had a case, one of our detectives received a phone call from a victim whose trafficker was in jail. The detectives did a great job, got this individual locked up. The victim called the detective and said, I'd like to talk to him. I'd like to talk to my boyfriend. He's in jail. Why? Because I'd like to go outside and have a cigarette with my girlfriend and I want to make sure it's okay. That's control. And that is the absolute psychological hold that they can have on these poor kids.
So the seller is one part of it. The buyers, we need to hold them accountable. As I just was talking to Miss Carey, I said, I lived here for 8 years with a guy that bought me on a regular basis, right off Hanson Boulevard. And I thought that was funny when I got off because it triggered something. And I was like, wow, I was here for 8 years with a trick who took care of me and my kids. This has been happening.
So what do we do here in Coon Rapids? I'll tell you what we do. We arrest, or we sting and arrest Johns. That's that demand piece. The money is the fuel, right? We have to address the money. If it's profitable, it will continue. We have to make human trafficking unprofitable. We investigate to find and intervene on behalf of the female victims. Those words are by choice. Intervene. 10 years ago, we would have said we're going to find and arrest prostitutes. We don't say that anymore. Words matter. The older I get, the more I understand how important the language matters. And we're getting there. Human Trafficking Forum, completely new vernacular, and I hope that that takes hold.
You know, one of the ways that human traffickers or sex traffickers control kids that are caught in this is to threaten them with prosecution. They say, hey, who's going to listen to you? If you go to the cops, you're going to get turned in, you're going to be prosecuted, not me. I'm going to be gone. Well, thankfully, a group of advocates, understanding this, went to the legislature and got passed a couple of things called the Safe Harbor laws. Okay. The Safe Harbor laws, passed in 2011-2013, said that actually they treat sexually exploited kids who are under 16 as a victim. They are not delinquent. They are not the kids. They are the victim of sexual exploitation. And what they did is those kids that are 16 and 17, they said that if they are caught in this kind of a situation and there is an arrest for it, they will be diverted into a program to deal with their particular issues. They will not be treated as delinquents. They will be diverted into a program. And that certainly includes sexually exploited youth and sex trafficking victims and child protection statutes also. So what that means is kids who are caught in this vicious cycle are now being treated as kids who need help. And part of that Safe Harbor law also was to create a victim-centered response to sexually exploited youth, using recommendations from the Safe Harbor for Sexually Exploited Youth Pilot Project. So in other words, the state, through its agencies, are working with people who work with these kids to come up with some solutions, how we're going to address this problem as we go forward.
When they come to John's school, we have survivors come up and talk. In this John school, they sit all day to learn about their role in this. Now, we also said that having John school was an educational piece for the buyer. Why do you want to train the buyer, people said? Well, we had to take a look at it. What if they were generational buyers? What if their fathers, grandfather said, this is how we're going to make you a man. We're going to buy you a woman. And this was a handed-down tradition. We're going to take you out and make you a man today and get you a girl. And they bought someone. Why would we expect this man to know different if this is what he's been shown? Domestic violence, the same tactics of power and control are used on women and girls in prostitution that are used when women and girls are involved in domestic situations. And power and control is what it's all about.
If you take anything away from this, make sure you take away two things. Is one, the importance of treating the victims of sex trafficking as victims. And number two, I want you to not focus on geography. I'm here speaking on behalf of Coon Rapids because that's what I know. But if you're thinking it's a Coon Rapids issue, you've missed the point.
And this is a great resource for anyone connected to any Anoka County school, not just Anoka Hennepin. You can call for shelter resources, food shelf resources, or any other intervention.
Prison show is what I know. They bring in all these boys and girls all around the whole wide world. Prison show is what I know, but here we go, yeah, whoa. Prison show is what I know.
Okay, basically we have three forms of trafficking, and we have labor, we have sex, and organ trafficking. Yes. And they are all happening. It could be by your side, your household, in the church. It's everywhere. Eventually, everywhere around the world, it's happening. So There's no denial to that.
So do you think it's really, really important to be talking more about this issue and educating basically